Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. Today, we're going to cover advanced segmentation and targeting strategies that will allow you to have more sales with Klaviyo. Again, this is all about unlocking the power of your customer data rather than just sending out generic emails to your entire email list. We're really going to talk about how you can be more personalized with your email marketing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. My name is Nick Lutrick. I am the co-founder and CEO of TaskOn. We are an e-commerce agency that helps online brands grow their revenue by optimizing their Shopify store and by leveraging Klaviyo to handle email and SMS marketing. The reason that we've chosen to partner with Klaviyo is that they are the industry leader in e-commerce email marketing. They offer powerful automation, segmentation, integrations, and many other features that are really targeted specifically for the e-commerce industry. We're going to cover a lot of information in this webinar. We're going to walk through each of the components of creating segments, why that's important, where you can use it within Klaviyo, and then we're going to jump over and do a live demo showing you how to actually create these segments within your Klaviyo account. I know the title of this webinar is Advanced Segmentation, but like with anything, we really have to start with the foundation. So I'm just going to explain a few foundational concepts to get us started, starting with what is a segment in the first place. So according to Webster's Dictionary, I'm just kidding. According to Klaviyo, segmentation is the process of dividing your email list into smaller, more focused groups based on specific criteria. This criteria can include their purchase history, actions within your online platform, customer behavior, demographics, and a lot more. And like I mentioned earlier, what this allows for is a really more personalized and relevant email campaign so that you're communicating the right thing at the right time to the right people. Why is this so important? Well, Klaviyo did a study recently, and they found that users or companies that use highly segmented lists in their email campaigns had open rates nearly double that of unsegmented campaigns, click-through rates over double, revenue per recipient was over triple, and the unsubscribe rates were half the amount of that of unsegmented email campaigns. So this is a way to really level up your email marketing, your SMS marketing. And as you can see here, I mean, these stats kind of speak for themselves. And so what we're going to do now is really talk about what are some of the components of a segment, just so that you have kind of a good understanding of the building blocks of how to create these. And then we'll talk about where we can use these within the Klaviyo platform. All right. So what are segment conditions? Segment conditions are the building blocks of a segment. This is what defines who's in or out of a segment, and it allows these lists or these segments to be updated in real time. Some of the conditions that you can use when creating your segments are activities. So things like, did a customer place an order? Did they view a product? Did they start checkout? These are activities that you can use to create your segments. You can also use attributes of their personal profile. So things like birth date, address, names, and any other data that you collect on your customer and is stored on their profile within Klaviyo. There's also predictive analytics that can be used within these segments. So things like predicted gender or customer lifetime value. These are things that maybe you don't have exact data on, but through AI and machine learning, Klaviyo is really helping us to understand with high likelihood what some of this data could be for your customers. Now, one of the kind of the topics that kind of trips people up sometimes is the concept of and versus or whenever you're building your segments. So as we'll see in the demo, there's two ways that you can really add on conditions. One is you can use an and condition, and what that's going to do is narrow your segment to people that meet all of the conditions. So it'll be something like someone has opened an email and clicked an email. So that would narrow the segment based on meeting all of the conditions. The other way is to use or, and what that does is it actually expands the segment to include profiles that meet any of those conditions. So in that previous example, you could say anybody that has opened an email or opened an SMS or reply to an SMS rather. They may not meet both of those conditions, but you're able to bring in all of that data to expand on your segment. And then the last foundational concept that I wanted to explain was you can actually add on additional filters for each condition that allows you to be even more precise as you're narrowing down your data. So if you've joined us in any of our previous webinars, you've likely seen this slide, but these are some of the key segments that really most companies should have set up. You could start with your new subscribers or people that have signed up for your email list, but maybe haven't made a purchase yet. You would have your engaged customers, and these are people that frequently interact with your emails, or maybe they interact with your online store. There's a few ways that you can segment these customers based on their level of engagement so that you can communicate relevant information to them based on their current interest in your products. Another important segment is what's called VIPs, or these are your high value customers. So these may be customers that have a high lifetime value, customers that maybe have made a number of purchases over a short period of time, or maybe their average order value is higher than average. And what this allows you to do is to segment these high value customers, these VIPs, so that you could offer them even more special offers. Like maybe you could give them early access to new products or offer them special incentives in order to continue to increase the value of those customers over time. Another important segment is at-risk customers. So these are customers that maybe have made a purchase in the past, but they haven't made a purchase recently, and so they're at risk. By having a segment specifically for these customers, you can launch win-back campaigns with special incentives to try to re-engage them and to get them back to making purchases for your store. Cart abandoners, this is an important one. You can use this within your flows really effectively, but cart abandoners are customers that have shown interest by putting something in the cart, but then they didn't finalize the purchase. And so you could segment them out to send specific email campaigns to them to really get them to go ahead and convert into a paying customer. And then a couple of other segments that can be really impactful is using geographic location for a segment. Perhaps you have customers on the West Coast or you have customers on the East Coast. You can segment them out based on their address so that you can send targeted emails to them based on things that are a little bit more relevant where they live. And then lastly on this list is product categories. So by segmenting customers based on the product categories that they've purchased in the past, you can do some really cool things like sending cross-sell campaigns. So maybe they've purchased one product and you have another product that goes well with that product. You could create a segment for everybody that's bought that and then send them a campaign to cross-sell them another related product that you may offer. There's also other things you could do. Perhaps you're a fashion brand and you're trying to identify, are your customers male versus female? You could use the products that they've purchased. Perhaps they've only bought men's apparel in the past. In that case, you would want to segment them out so that you're not sending them, the latest, dresses or high heels or something like that your female customers would be more likely to purchase. So product categories is a really powerful way, especially if you offer a lot of different categories of products, to where you could segment them out and be much more targeted with your campaigns. Before I move forward, I just wanted to mention a couple of housekeeping items. If you do have any questions, please put those in the Q&A section of the webinar. We have a team that is monitoring those questions, and we'll take a break before we do the demo to answer any of those. But, really the whole purpose of this call is to add value to you. So if you do have any questions, please use that Q&A feature within the chat. All right, so moving forward, we have a solid understanding of what a segment is, what are some of the conditions that you would use to create segments, as well as some key segments. Now let's talk about where you will use segments within the Klaviyo platform. So of course, we're going to use them in our flows and our campaigns that we're sending, but there's actually a number of other places within Klaviyo that you can utilize segments to increase your performance. One of those places is on your sign-up forms. So your sign-up forms has the ability to target certain customers based on the segment that they're in. So you could utilize their behavioral data to customize that form. You could use geographics to target them with personalized offers. And I'll show an example of that during the demo. You could segment them by level of engagement. So perhaps you don't want to offer a discount code to your highly engaged customers, but you do want to offer a discount code to your at-risk customers. You can do that with segmentation within your sign-up forms. And with everything within Klaviyo, A/B testing is critical because as much as we have brilliant ideas, oftentimes the customer, based on their actual activity, tells us something different. So within these sign-up forms, you can do A/B testing with different offers or different segments. And that will really help you optimize your conversion rate even faster than if you were just doing a single sign-up form with no personalization whatsoever. Another really cool area that you could use segmentation, and this is an area that I don't see clients using enough of, is by integrating with your online advertising. So I'm going to use Google Ads as the example here because it's probably the most common, advertising platform that you would use. But what you can do within Klaviyo is you can set up your segments and you can have that integrated with Google to automatically create custom audiences based on those segments. You could use segments like cart abandoners or VIPs or your inactive subscribers, like I mentioned earlier, and offer them different ad content based on the type of customer or potential customer that they are. So rather than just using the same generic ad for all of your customers, you can be even more targeted within your ad campaign. And you can do a couple of other things that are really powerful, such as excluding recent purchasers from your ads. That way you can optimize your ad spend, or you can also expand your audience by creating lookalike audiences based on your current data. So perhaps you have a really strong list currently, but you're trying to acquire new customers. You could feed that custom audience to Google Ads and then create a lookalike audience based on your current audience, which would allow you to expand your reach to customers that you may have not engaged with yet. This also allows you to align your messaging across all channels so that you have a consistent story for your brand. And all of this updates immediately. So there's a real-time syncing that happens so that you can stay optimized and track that performance in real time. The same goes with certain social media integrations. So not only are we going to use Google Ads, we're most likely going to use Facebook or other social media platforms to run ads to our customers as well. And so you can do the same thing. You can sync your segments with Facebook to offer personalized ads for your customers. So things like trying to re-engage your VIPs that maybe haven't made a purchase in a while, targeting your cart abandonment customers for higher conversion, doing a cross-sell campaign like I mentioned earlier. If you know that you have a men's customer for your fashion brand, perhaps your ad needs to be optimized for the men and the products that they've purchased. And another option is if you do offer any subscriptions, if you have like a consumable product, you could try to upsell them to an ongoing subscription to create recurring revenue for your company by targeting some of your first-time customers or your repeat buyers with specific ads offering incentives to sign up for a subscription. So again, this just really allows you to create more impactful campaigns and maximize your engagement with your customers by using your segments in these other platforms that Klaviyo integrates well with. And then lastly, as with everything, it's very important to keep an eye on your data. So you can use your segments within your analytics or your dashboards, and you can use that intelligence to improve your entire marketing campaign. So you would start by segmenting your customers, and you could do this with different things. You could do this with predictive analytics, such as your customer lifetime value. But once you've ran some campaigns or some flows with these segmented customers, you would then review and interpret your data. This is going to allow you to understand your customer behavior even better, and you can use those insights to take action that leads to growth. And you would do that by enhancing your customer journey based on the data that you've learned. And so this is an ongoing process. You use A/B testing with this as well. So this really never stops. There should be a mindset of continuous improvement within your organization. And the only way to really well is to leverage the data that's at your disposal. So I know it's not the most exciting thing for most e-commerce brands. However, it's critical if you truly want to optimize the performance of everything that you're doing within Klaviyo. Right. Before we jump into how to actually create a segment, I'm just going to check the Q&A real quick. Looks like we are all good. So with that, let's talk high level, how you would create a segment. So the first step, obviously, so you're going to be in Klaviyo, you're going to go to your lists and segments, and you're going to click create segment. You'll give your segment a name, something that's easily identifiable on your side, something that makes sense. But then from there, we're going to define the conditions of the segment. If there are any additional filters that we want to include, we would add those on. We would use the and or logic to create the precise segment, and then finalize and save it. Once we do that, any changes to the data is going to update in real time, allowing you to really be more dynamic in your communication. And so let's go ahead and switch gears a little bit. Let's jump into Klaviyo and let's take a look at how we actually go about creating a segment. All right, so I am already logged into Klaviyo, and as you can tell, I have a number of segments already created. Now, keep in mind, this is our sandbox environment, so it doesn't have all of the bells and whistles of an actual account. However, we're going to be able to go through all of the features just as you would on your side. So the first thing that we're going to do is go to lists and segments. We're going to click create new, and we're going to click create segment. Before I click this though, I do want to highlight a really important distinction, and that is between lists and segments. Sometimes people get confused about this, but there's really an easy way to think about this. A list is static. Whoever goes into that list, nothing changes unless you change it or the system automatically changes it. Like they sign up for a newsletter, they get added to the list, they stay in the list. So when it comes to lists, we really recommend that you have very few of these, perhaps one list per channel. So you would have a list for your email subscribers, a list for your SMS subscribers, if that's all you were doing. Sometimes I see people creating 20, 30 different lists, and that just makes it really challenging to clean up your list and keep that data relevant, because you have to go into every single list and make those changes individually. So I think the more reasonable option is using segments, and segments are dynamic. That means that they change automatically based on the filters or the conditions that you've set up. So they're constantly changing based on the data that is used to create a segment. So again, you would have one list for your email subscribers, but then you may have 20 different segments based on that list. And all of those segments are updated dynamically based on the properties of that segment. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and click create segment. And as I mentioned, first thing we're going to do is we're going to name this one. So I'm going to start off by creating just a simple engaged segment, because this is something that everybody should be using. There's different levels of engagement. So let's just start off with an engaged 30 days segment. And you can name this anything you want, but you really want to make sure that whatever you name it is easy for you to understand. You could tag this. You could add certain tags like this is going to be an engaged segment. But then from here, this is where we start to add our conditions. So as I build this for the first time, I'm going to explain a couple of these things. So when you click the drop down, you'll see there's a few different types of conditions that you can choose from. You can choose something based on what someone has done or not done. So this is their activity within your store. You can do it based on properties about someone. So what is the data that you have? You can use location. And then another really cool feature is the predictive analytics. So for this, what we're going to start out with is what someone has done. And then now you can choose, all right, what activity do we want to filter on? So for an engaged segment, we may want to do something such as opened an email at least once in the last 30 days. And so let me just explain this a little bit more. So whenever you click this drop down, you have all of the different activities. You have Klaviyo activities. You have if you have any APIs that you're leveraging with the integrations, you can use those. And then if you integrate with your online store providers such as Shopify or BigCommerce, WooCommerce, Magento, etc., you'll be able to get specific activities directly from those platforms as well. Then you can choose the frequency. So at least once, 0 times, equal, doesn't equal. greater than, less than. And then you can choose the duration. So do we want to do it in the last 30 days? Do we want to do it between a date range? Or do we want to look at overall time? We have the flexibility to do that. But for this simple engage segment, what we're going to do is we're going to say has opened an email at least once in the last 30 days. And then here's where you notice or and or. We're going to do or because we want to, for this segment, we want to select people that meet any of these conditions. Perhaps someone has placed an order, but they have not opened an email. And that's fine. You would want to still include them in your engaged segment. So I'm going to click or, and I'm going to say they have clicked an email at least once in the last 30 days, or they have been active on the site in the last 30 days, or they have started checkout in Shopify, or they have placed an order. So this is a common condition set for an engaged segment. So I'm going to stay here. You could add as many of these as you want. If there's other activity that you would like to include in your engaged segment, you would just include or for any of those. Now, the last thing that I always recommend is creating and so this is what this is going to do. It's going to take a look at anybody that meets any of these conditions because we were using or, but also and includes this. So what this is and can receive email marketing. So this ensures that you're only sending it to those that have not unsubscribed or truly can receive your marketing. And you could do this a few different ways. You could do it with email, SMS, mobile push, but for this one, this is what we're going to do. So once you have updated all of your conditions, everything looks good. From there, you will click Create Segment. Depending on the size of your customer list, this could take a few minutes for the segment to be created. Since this is a sandbox environment, we don't have that many, so this should finish up pretty quickly. But I'm going to go back out of here and show you. So you can see this one is queued for processing. Here's one I created earlier. If we needed to change this for any reason, we could click the three dots on the right-hand side of the screen, and we could click Update Definition. We can edit the name. So you have some specific things you could do here. But what I'm going to do is actually just click on the name of the segment, and you can see everybody that is included in the segment. You could update the name, like I mentioned. But here, under Edit Definition, you can always go back in and make changes to these segments. And then once you click Update, it's going to refresh that segment. And there are a couple of additional pieces of data that you could look at, such as your engagement levels within this segment, as well as the growth within this segment. But this is a really great one to have initially, because once you have it created, you could then clone this segment, and let's do one for 60 days. So everything's already here, but now we're just going to go through, update this to be 60 days, clone segment. So we could go through and create multiple levels of engagement. We could do a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 180-day. I would always suggest doing some testing with your different levels of engagement just to see how different campaigns to different segments perform. But this is a really foundational segment that everybody should have. And so hopefully that just added a little bit of clarity on how you would create that. Now, the second segment that we're going to take a look at is for your VIPs. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to create a new segment. This does happen in Klaviyo sometimes, where you can see I clicked create segment and it's already, it's including the information that I was sharing previously. So I'm just going to reload this screen. I know the Klaviyo product teams are working out some of those little issues that you'll experience from time to time. But now we have our segment here. I'm going to call this one VIP customers. Maybe I would go ahead and add a tag to this just so I could keep it organized. And for VIPs, we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to use a couple of things. Now, this can be set up many different ways depending on your company. So I would advise really kind of sitting down and thinking strategically on what does a high value customer mean for your organization? Because you may be someone that sells a lower ticket price item, but you want to identify people that make a lot of those purchases, but maybe you have a few high value items. And so you're not as worried about number of purchases. You're actually more interested on average order value or the total amount of purchases made over time. But for my segment here that we're going to create, I'm going to use a few different conditions. One is I'm going to say what they have done is they have placed an order is at least 5 orders over all time. Then I'm going to say, or what someone has done, placed order value is at least $1,000 overall time. Lastly, I'm going to say, this time I'm going to use predictive analytics, and I'm going to say their average order value is at least $100. And as always, I'm going to click and. I'm just going to make sure that they can receive marketing, and I'm going to create this segment. Okay, while that's loading, hopefully you're getting the point of kind of how we go about creating these segments. I want to highlight a couple of other more advanced types of segments that you could potentially set up. So I'm going to go ahead and click into this West Coast segment here. I'm going to click Edit Definition. And so for this one, what we can do is we could say someone's placed an order, but this time we're going to use properties about someone. So whenever you use properties about someone, you'll notice you get access to all of the data that's tied to their profile. So things such as their address, name, as well as any other data that you may be collecting kind of outside of the system. I'll give you kind of a quick tip on how you can collect even more data, because in today's time, data really is king. The more data that you have about your customers, the more personalized and the more effective your campaigns will be. So in this case, I'm creating a West Coast segment because, perhaps I want to send, something related to Coachella, the big music festival that's hosted in California. People in New York may not be as interested in Coachella, so I'm going to exclude them from this campaign that I'm sending. And so in this case, I'm going to say their state is in. And so this is one of those things, there's a lot of different filter criteria that you can use here. So I would recommend spending a little bit of time in the Klaviyo help articles, because it'll have really great definitions about what all of this means. But the difference is, if I would have said the state equals, then I can only select one value. However, I need to select multiple values. So I'm saying is in the list of, and I'm going to select California, and I'm going to select Oregon. Once I save this, you can easily clone this, and then perhaps you would set up a East Coast that would include New York and Massachusetts. Maybe you would have a Midwest that has Illinois and Ohio, and then you have your Southern segment that includes Georgia. So just depending on the states that you sell products in, this may vary, but for us, we're going to do just this West Coast segment here. So now I have somebody that I can target based on their geographic location. Another reason this is important, perhaps you sell seasonal type products. One client that we've worked with, they sell outdoor fire pits. Well, in February in Boston, outdoor fire pits don't do very well. In Southern California, they do, because there's not as such a brutally cold winter. And so what they do is they segment their customers into cold winter and warm winter customers. And so then they can send an email for their outdoor fire pits to their warm winter customers, but then they send indoor fireplace equipment to their cold winter customers. So that's a practical way that you could use these segments to personalize your campaigns based on where your customers are located. I'm going to do two more examples real quick, and then we're going to look at where you can use this within the system. This one is going to be based on product categories. So perhaps you are a book seller and you have different categories of books. You have children's books, you have classic books, and you have fiction books for adults. What you could do is you could say, give me everybody that has placed an order at least once in the last 30 days. And this is where you can add an additional filter. So let me just remove this because I haven't mentioned this yet. So filters allow you to be even more precise, because currently this is just going to give me everybody that's placed an order, but I only want orders where the category, and so this will pull in all of the information of your products essentially. So I want to say they've placed an order in the last 30 days where the category is children's book. So now I'm really getting narrow with my conditions, which is exactly what we want to do. And the purpose of this segment is I want to send a campaign to potential moms or the women in this child's life to say, hey, you deserve to read as well. So we're going to say, hey, they placed an order, category is children, and the predictive analytics is likely female. And so now you have a list of, here are female customers that have bought a children's book recently, and maybe I can try to send them a campaign to offer classics or fiction books to this audience. Now with predictive analytics, there is a small chance that you accidentally, that this isn't 100% accurate. So I would exercise a little bit of caution. However, that percentage is pretty low. And so I think the risk reward of doing this definitely in a lot of cases makes sense. But just, something to keep in mind is in this example, maybe I don't really know if they are moms. And so you would just want to study your customer data a little bit. And the way that you could do that, so once I update this segment, it's going to tell me everybody that's in this list. So I could do a little bit of validation here to make sure that, yes, these customers do appear to meet the criteria that I set in the segment. So I'm sure that was a lot of information. There's, as you can see, there's so much flexibility to create different types of segments. And I recommend this always. It's, you don't have to do everything all at once. Like if you're currently not doing any segmentation, perhaps you just start with your engaged segments. But if you're already doing that and you're looking to improve your performance even more, well, then, expand that a little bit to some of your other segments and really take a look at the purchasing behavior of your customers to try to just evaluate what types of segments should be used for your organization. There are AI tools that are coming that can help you brainstorm some of this. Even within Klaviyo, they have a beta feature where you can use AI to help you define some of your segments, but it's not perfect. So, really using your experience and your strategic thinking to explore different segments that you think will perform well, and then test that to see if your assumptions are valid. And then based on the results of those tests, you either have confirmed, hey, this was a great segment, the performance improved, or it did not, and then you try something different. So I always recommend start small, take one step at a time, and before you know it, really in a short period of time, you will be sending highly personalized, targeted campaigns to your customers. All right, before I take a look at where we're going to use these within the system, let me just double check. And I do see a question here, which is, what numbers should we look at to know if our targeted emails are working? Great question. So it's really the standard metrics that all email or all marketers, specifically email marketers in this case, should be looking at. That's going to be your open rates, your click rates, your order rate, as well as keeping an eye on unsubscribe rate, because you could, especially if you make a mistake and you send what you think is a personalized email, but you send it to the wrong customer, that there is a little bit of risk involved in that. And so keeping an eye on your unsubscribe rate to make sure that that's not going up. But I would say take a look at all of those metrics and you're going to be able to see pretty quickly, hey, did the generic campaign versus the personalized campaign perform better? Great question. All right. So where can we use this? I'm going to quickly just show you within each of the sections within Klaviyo. So you can use this in your flows. So you can have a trigger that when someone is added to the segment, you can then send them an email. So that's a really powerful way that you could use segments to send targeted welcome campaigns, or if somebody finally meets the criteria of being a VIP, then you could send them a personalized flow that says, hey, thank you so much for being such a valued customer. You've now qualified for our VIP program. Here's what you can expect. You can expect to see early access to some of our products. You can expect to see special discounts and incentives. So thank you so much. So this is one place where you can use your segments. Of course, you can use them in your campaigns. Whenever you go to create your campaign, one of the first things that you're going to do is choose who are you sending it to. So for this one, perhaps I'm sending it to my engaged 60 days. And you could select multiple segments. I probably wouldn't choose that one. I would probably maybe do these two. So you can combine and exclude as well. So maybe I'm sending something to the majority of my list, but I actually don't want to send this to my VIPs. I see this sometimes, so your VIPs often are already making high value purchases. So maybe on Black Friday, you don't offer them as big of a discount. You'll have to kind of evaluate that a little bit, but you can use your segments within campaigns. The next area that you can use your segments is within your sign up form. So I have just an example sign up form that's created here. Let me click into this. And there's a few steps before you get to this section, but within your form, you can click targeting, and this allows you to show it to specific profiles in a list or a segment. So in this case, perhaps it's the Super Bowl, not perhaps, the Super Bowl is coming up. So if there are any residents within 30 miles of Las Vegas where the Super Bowl is being hosted, what if you wanted to display a pop-up just for them? Like, hey, Super Bowl, we're hosting a pop-up store for our products. Come join us and you'll get 20% off. Well, what I could do is I could create the pop-up and make sure that only shows to, you would have a segment for your Las Vegas residents. But in this case, so I'm going to say, hey, just show this to West Coast. Or you could also exclude, like maybe I want to show this to everybody in the West Coast, but I don't want to show it to our VIP customers for some reason. You have the flexibility to include or exclude segments for your pop-up forms. And this can allow you to really display the message at the right time based on what you're trying to accomplish with these segments. Okay, the last thing that I want to show, because of course you can use it within your analytics, you can create custom reports, you can update your dashboards with certain segments. I want to look a little bit under the hood and go to integrations. So I have a few integrations set up. Let's take a look at Google Ads. Quick shout out, I will be hosting a webinar, I believe next month, on using integrations to increase your sales within Klaviyo. So make sure that you tune in for that. But what I've done, I've already added the integration. I connected my Google Ads account. And during that setup process, it asked me to connect the Klaviyo list or segment with the audience that I'm going to use within Google. I can always go in here and add additional connections. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add the connection for churn risks. So these are customers that made a purchase, but they haven't made a purchase in quite some time. And I'm going to create a new audience for this called at-risk customers, bigger incentive, for example. And I'm going to create this audience. So now what's going to happen is once I save this, this is going to automatically take anybody in that churn risk segment, and it's going to feed them over to Google as a custom audience. Once they're in Google as a custom audience, I could then create a lookalike audience to expand the audience based on my current customers. And then as I'm running those ads, I can be really more personalized with the content that I'm putting in front of my customers. So again, you could do so many things with this. One of the things that we do here at Task On is we document the customer journey. So starting with, customers that don't even know who we are, customers that have signed up for the website, customers that have put something in the cart but haven't purchased, customers that have made a purchase, maybe first-time customers, and then customers that are repeat buyers. So what you can do is use different ad campaigns based on where they're at in your customer journey or in your marketing funnel, and offer them different incentives or just different messaging based on where they're at. Maybe for someone that doesn't know who you are, you want to give them 20% off their first purchase. But for people that have already made 5 purchases, you just want to say, hey, look at this cool new product that we have, or look at this more expensive product that we have. And so that's how you can use these segments to help really optimize your advertising as well. I'm just going to save this. Okay, that's been updated. Same exact concept on the Facebook side. Whenever I click in here, you'll notice there's a custom audience sync, and you can even connect lead ads. So you can bring it the reverse way. So you can sync your segments to Facebook so that you can send personalized ads. Then when they click on that ad, it brings them back to your website where you have a Klaviyo form, and you can track really the entire 360 life cycle of your ad, starting with sending your audience over to Facebook, getting the customers back to your site, and tracking that data all the way through using A/B testing and really optimizing your ad spend and your performance over time. All right, so that's going to conclude our live demo. I know we do have a few moments left. Just to kind of recap the key takeaways of this session, if you're not using segmentation currently, it really is the next step in your journey. Start small, add on those building blocks as you learn, but really start to target select groups of your customers. And remember that you can use them for your sign-up forms, flows, campaigns, integrations, analytics, basically everywhere within the Klaviyo platform, you can utilize segments to improve your performance. But with that, I'm going to take maybe 60 seconds to pause to see what questions you may have. And while I'm doing that, Just a quick reminder, we will be hosting monthly webinars. So coming up next is using integrations to grow your sales. We'll then also take a look at some of the plugins offered by Shopify that can improve your sales. So please stay on the lookout for those upcoming webinars. All right, looks like we are all set on the questions. So let's just wrap it up here, and just want to thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it. As always, stay connected with us. You can call us, email me, visit our website, follow us on social media. But it's really been my pleasure to provide this information to you today. And I hope that you use this information to improve your marketing performance and, most importantly, grow revenue for your brand. I'm Nick from Task On E-commerce. Thank you so much.